We do have one question, and again, if anybody else has a question, please submit them in the Q&A section, and we'll go through them. But to start off, we have a question from Apple. Is there a specific go-to mindfulness approach for a particular group? For example, for kids, as they are just starting, I'm thinking more body scan as they are in exploratory stage in the formative years, those who have been recovering from medical treatment, breathing approaches. If you could speak to specific mindfulness approaches for particular groups.
Sure. It's a great question. So for kids, like the younger the kid, the more guidance I will give. So if I'm leading a meditation for a kid, if they're really, really, really young, I'll kind of keep it moving to keep them engaged. The older the kid, the more pauses I will introduce to kind of give them some space to actually like sense into their experience without me distracting them. But so for kids, I will encourage them to notice what they can see, like maybe name 5 things, like 5 colors they can notice, 4 different sounds that they can hear. Can you feel sensations of your clothes on your skin, the feelings of your feet on the ground? And I'll just kind of keep it simple like that. Not necessarily in a meditation, but just being there. And can you notice the sounds of the breeze through the trees, or
would you say it's about knowing your audience in that case, being tuned into them?
Sure. Yeah. I think for any demographic, it helps to know them as much as you can. And so when I teach mindfulness, I tend to, especially for one-on-one, I tend to ask many questions in the beginning so that I can tailor something for them. I'll try to discover that what's challenging for them, or what they've tried before, what's worked, what hasn't, what they think mindfulness is, or I'll just ask quite a few questions. What kinds of emotions they might experience on a regular basis. But yeah, so for kids, if they're really young, I tend to incorporate a little bit of visualization, where it's almost like a hybrid with the mindfulness practice, where I'll ask them to sit tall like a mountain, and or treat your mind like a lake, where I'll incorporate some visuals that kind of can help them get a sense for what I'm pointing to. Regarding healthcare, or I guess with people with physical pain, I'll tend to work more on the pleasant side in the beginning by cultivating loving kindness for people they already love, or sensing into the parts of the body that might feel actually pleasant or kind of neutral. And I'll kind of emphasize those points for longer periods of time to strengthen their ability to stay present, notice actual physical sensations versus the thoughts about the sensations, and to kind of build mindfulness with what's not scary for a while, and then start to tiptoe towards the pain or towards the discomfort. Not because I'm cool, but because science shows that it's actually helpful to do that. For CEOs or like large company heads, I might just do some basic grounding practices, then work with some of their common emotions that they have difficulty regulating. I'll go into some teachings around resilience, which you can find on my website for free. But I will usually spend plenty of time on self-compassion. Same for caregivers as well. Self-compassion, I think, is very important to emphasize the sense of self-care. And self-care does not necessarily mean going to the gym and eating right. It's about actually opening your heart to yourself. And so, you can talk about mindfulness and self-compassion as being two separate things, but and they kind of are, but when you're bringing mindfulness to your own discomfort, your own suffering, your own pain, your own stress, whatever you want to call it, when you're bringing mindfulness to that discomfort, that is self-compassion. Because we're opening to it, we're allowing it to be here, we're not judging it. And that is imbued with care, which is why people like Jack Kornfield call mindfulness loving awareness. But I tend not to use the word loving because I don't want to sound too woo-woo or, soft, so I'll use non-judgmental. But I really like emphasizing self-compassion practices, which Kristen Neff at her website, selfcompassion.org, highlights these practices of self-compassion. I tend to emphasize those with CEOs and caregivers because usually CEOs and caregivers, they may not necessarily avoid them, but they could use more of them typically.
Yeah.
So those are a few examples of how I might emphasize different practices for different people.